this segment, we got a nice little extension of what we talked about so far. Okay, all right. We talked about, man, a penetrative stance. We talked about penetrative drills to knock people backwards. You know, we talked about blow delivery drills. Okay, where you maintain good balance and good body contact. Okay, now we're going to talk about run schemes and how every drill up to this point has put us in a position to play these different schemes with good leverage, with violent knockback, okay, and with good block destruction getting off of blocks, okay? All right, so right here, we start with really a basic, even though there's 3-on-1, this is a one-on-one drill. It's just a basic fundamental drill. Well, what's the very first block you get in football? Base block is a base block. We very rarely see that. So what we're going to go to, instead of a base block, because we don't see it a lot, we're going to go right to what we call inside zone and how we defend the inside zone with zone 2 and zone away. So in this first illustration, what's the hardest thing, in my humble opinion, for a defensive lineman when they're playing a inside zone, a belly team, okay, is when it's zone away. Okay, so in this illustration here, all right, we're talking about here, really, we talked to this guy here about grinding the guard. How do you grind the guard? Okay, on zone away, okay, we are trying to grind the guard and basically take this A gap, okay, and put his body in this A gap while playing gap leverage with 2/3 of our body in this B gap, okay? So what's the most important part about grinding the guard? The first thing is get off. It's get off, right? The second thing is striking, shooting your hands with good blow delivery. The next thing, which is the hardest thing to teach, is the grind technique. How do you do that? When you grind an offensive guard or an offensive tackle, if you're in an underfront in this zone away, we talk about staying on the inside rails of our feet. Right now, we're not in the rails. We're not getting a great look. We don't have pads on in this illustration, okay? And we got a freshman who's been here in this, I think it's first or second practice. But when we talk about grinding the guard, we talk about knocking him back while staying on the inside rails of our feet here, okay, and having good gap leverage like he does here. Let's just try to keep going through these and see what we get here. This is a little bit better illustration. Now, what is one of the biggest problems that coaches have, okay, when coaching this technique? What do kids usually like to do? They like to take their hands off of their visual key and convert them to what we call their pressure key, all right? So coaching this grind technique is absolutely imperative because we're saying see a little, see everything. If we keep two hands and we stay in the inside rails and we knock him back and we put him in this A-gap window, we now can have B-gap leverage and we can have a backer fit behind the ball. Okay, let me go back. I hit forward here. Let me go back. So watch right here. So this is what we're looking for in the grind technique here, okay? So now, on that grind technique, one more thing to talk about. This is absolutely important, okay? On the grind technique, we talk about grinding the guard. We are saying we are playing our primary gap and we are cutting off the inside gap with his body, okay? Again, the hardest thing to coach is keeping those guys on the inside rails of their feet. Once these guys get up on their toes, it gives the guard or tackle, depending on what the alignment is, a cleaner veer release up to the backers. In our defense, it's an indictment on our room if a guard can get his hands on a micro roll backer. It's an indictment. That meant we didn't knock him back. That meant we got away from our philosophy, okay? All right, good. You can tell I'm fired up here because I'm in D-line heaven talking about this. All right, this next rep here, okay, when we talk about the inside zone, okay, we talk about setting the vertical edge. Setting the vertical edge. How do we set the vertical edge? Okay, we set the vertical edge by having a great stance, by that foot replacing that down hand, and we're shooting our hands, striking with the heels of our hands, just like we're pushing a car, striking with the heels of our hands and knocking your visual key back. All right? It's a standard in our room. It's a standard. So you watch here, okay? All right? This one, I love this kid. This kid came a long ways here. But you watch him now. He's a little bit too sideways with his footwork. You see how we're not vertical here? We're not going to give you everything that's perfect here, okay? But you can watch the play leverage in his hands, setting the edge. At the end of the day, what's got to get done? Knock him back. What's supposed to happen? Knock him back. What is our world? Knock him back, okay? All right? This is a little bit better. Again, the foot here isn't great on replacing the down hand. This is why I tape these angles so these guys can watch the indie on their own and go, you know what? I didn't really knock him back. Is he on the edge? Yes. Is 2/3 of his body in his gap? Yes. But it's not violent enough on the knockback. Okay? All right. So let's go back. Let's go back here. Okay? I want you to watch this next rep here. I think this is out of order a little bit. All right? Now you watch this guy here. Better job up the field, good play leverage, good knockback, shoulder square to the line of scrimmage. Remember, we said two things early in this video that's imperative. What were they? Play leverage, okay? Play leverage, which you see in this illustration here. Play leverage. What's the next thing we said that was important, okay? Your eyes. See a little, see everything. What's the third thing that's important in this drill? Setting the vertical edge, knocking them back, okay? The very first thing you see when I come in our room is a sign that says, square is strong. Square is strong. The more square and vertical we play up the field, the more problems we create for running backs, okay, and anyone who wants to carry the ball. They're not invited in there, by the way, okay? All right, so here's 2 years ago, and what we're doing here now, we're converting from the inside run drill now to the double team drill, okay? So we're converting from the inside zone game, okay, working zone 2, working zone away. Remember, I'm going to just reiterate this to you. This is something that's dear to my heart. If you can coach your guys on the grind technique, whether they're a shade, a 5, a 9, a 3 technique, or a 2-eye, you got something pretty damn good going. If you can coach setting the vertical edge, knocking him back with zone 2, I'll tell you what, it's worth $1 million. Okay? So now we're going to get in here. We spent a lot of time on this, especially with Coach Pasqualoni, what we call a 2-part double team. So what are we trying to do? Let me, first of all, tell you, what are the issues with teaching a double team? Some people want to sit on the bar stool. Some people want to just take an immediate knee, okay? All right? Some people want to spin out of it. This is what we talk about with the double team, and this is why we drilled it this way. We're trying to get that first step in the ground as we're working right here. The second thing is we're trying to stay on our visual key as long as we can, okay? All right? We are not converting anything to our pressure key. So I want to go back and repeat this because this is something that gets lost in translation. Whenever you have a double team, the very first thing we teach, and this is why we do 2-on-1s, is you have a visual key. Who's your visual key? Your visual key is who you're lined up on. Who is your pressure key? Your pressure key is the next adjacent player. Now, in this illustration, and one of the hardest things to coach for young players is they want to take their hands off their visual key and convert to their pressure key. So this is a very disciplinary thing, All right, so we're working a two-part deal here. You can watch a couple of these. I'm just going to let it run. We're working the step and staying there. Okay? All right? We're just working to keep your feet moving. Keep your feet moving. All right? To keep your feet moving. I want to show you one more thing about this. And here's a little tip for you. This is also, if you can split the double, that's where the front side shrug release also shows up, which you can see right here. Shrug it and go. All right. So now we talked about this before. This is the last thing I'll go over here, which I think is going to be important, is fitting on the tight zone. So this is just another way that we do the stair drill here. Watch this here. You see Zach here, right here. Look at his feet. We don't have the greatest view before we got our indoor, but he's on the rails of his feet. He's playing a 6 technique, all right? Watch right here. This is very good. Good play leverage. He never once converts to his pressure key. He stays on his visual key. He stays on the rails of his feet. He's pushing up the field, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this, okay? This is extremely important. On that grind technique, it's so simple. You can teach it in 5 minutes and work left and right by lining up the whole line across, partnered up on the edge. And basically all you have the offensive line do is they're just taking inside tight zone steps, and you're having those defensive linemen lock out, so they're here, they're locking out, and when they fill zone away, they are grinding the guard on the inside rails while pushing upfield. That's critical. The biggest problem you have is those guys will try to go sideways first. Well, that defeats the whole purpose of grind. We want to grind the guard by knocking them back and pushing upfield on the inside rails of our feet with good play leverage, okay, and good eye discipline. And the last part of teaching the grind technique, which is critical, is players, because they get overemphasized in the actual grind technique, they take their eyes out of their window. From a run fit standpoint, those are some basic fundamentals that I think can help your players, that you can do daily, pre-practice, post-practice, and I think those drills will really give you an ample opportunity to help enhance your guys' level of play against the inside run, inside zone, against a double team block, okay, against a cutoff block, which is zone away.